Dear Future Enoch, it's back. A couple weeks ago, I read an article on how this photo won the CEWE Photo Award, an award worth over $25,000. A photo of a female Indonesian cafe owner playing cards with a group of men. A photo that impressively captures the atmosphere of a special moment. A photo that clearly excels at composition and lighting. An authentic look at how a woman is challenging societal norms. A photo so authentic that it was later discredited as being staged. Ouch. Now, to be clear, the photography competition doesn't forbid staged photos, but it was disqualified as the photographer was dishonest about its origins. And I don't need to say this, but dishonesty in photojournalism is a career killer. Now, dishonesty is just bad no matter how you look at it, so I'm not vouching for the photographer or anything. But I did have some issues with the photo being staged to begin with, and then being passed off as documentary. The photo was initially taken to market the launch of a new camera, so the original intent behind it wasn't to document or even to deceive. It was just that the photographer lied to the judges and the jury that the photo was authentic when it wasn't. My first thought was, why would you lie? Why won't you just be honest and say that this was a staged photo? I mean, the photo is great. Good lighting, good composition. Just say it was staged. But then I remembered how when I first started out in photography, how looking at a photo that I knew was not staged felt so much different than a photo that I knew was staged. I mean, when you're looking for authentic people shots, where do you usually go? You probably wouldn't go to Getty Images or any other stock photo website. We seem to have an innate desire to create records of history. And the whole point of a documentary is to provide a factual account of what had happened, an attempt at an objective retelling of the truth, rather than the subjective interpretation of the reporter. In The Ontology of the Photographic Image by Andre Bazin, there is a distinction between aesthetic realism and psychological realism. Aesthetic realism is basically like painting, because as much as a painter wants to faithfully recreate the scene in front of them, they can't avoid the fact that their creation is a subjective interpretation of their scene. The painter can't avoid the fact that their creation is an entirely manual creation, subject to their biases and their interpretation of the scene. Psychological realism, on the other hand, is basically photography. It's an objective creation. When a photo is taken, the photo is taken through a mechanical process. A mechanical process that is largely independent of the photographer. There is some subjective interpretation, like the photographer can choose to or not to photograph some things. Things like composition and exposure settings are generally things that the photographer has some control over. And of course, a photo could be staged in a studio with complete control over the lighting and environment. Photography gives us an option to create something more authentic, closer to reality. And that's the whole point of a documentary, a faithful, or as faithful as possible, recreation of what actually happened, the objective truth. When I first started photography, my motto was to document the world around me, to freeze moments in time, moments that we can't go back to. And in a lot of ways, the photos I take today are largely based on that same philosophy. Now, I want to be clear that I have nothing against staged photos, and I have actually done a few staged photos. I just don't enjoy taking them. And that's why I've stuck with photography for so long, because I want to create records, and this is a good way of creating them. But with like any other record, you can falsify them. And it feels like when you falsify photography, you're sort of insulting the medium itself. Future Enoch, I'll see you next week.